All right, what's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. So we are live right now. President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, Russian president, are expected to have a press conference here live with us here any moment. So this is actually a live feed here that is an unexpected meeting here that we are going to be seeing here any moment. So we are live here as a last minute broadcast here, and we are going to be seeing Vladimir Putin and President Donald Trump expected to speak here any minute now. So this is unbelievable here that we're actually going to be seeing this here. So let me know your thoughts here in the comments section. We are live right now here on the YouTube It's Jimmy Show. Let me know if you can see and hear me. Type yes in the chat. Let me know where you're tuning in from. You can let me know your city, state, or even your country, as we have people tuning in here from all around the globe. Don't forget to hit that like button for me here. And if you haven't yet, subscribe down below so you don't miss out on future videos and help me reach 500,000 subscribers. You guys are amazing. So, particularly, let me know if we have any viewers tuning in here from Alaska. Because wow, what a place to be here today, as Vladimir Putin has flown in to Alaska here today. He is there, and we also have President Donald Trump there as well. And wow, what a unbelievable day here. So yeah, so we have people here in the chat starting to come in here. And yes, I see everybody here. Deborah Johnson here from Alaska. And I don't know what happened to our live feed, but okay, so we'll see what happens here. We'll give it here just a minute. Okay, so yeah, this will be unbelievable if we actually see Vladimir Putin take questions live. So let's see what happens here. What do you think Vladimir Putin is going to say to the world and to the American people? I am going to be actually shocked to see this happen live. What an unbelievable thing to happen here. So, wow. I just can't imagine Vladimir Putin being in this position, having to explain himself live on TV to the world. And I would expect Donald Trump to kind of pressure him there. And it would almost be like a presidential debate where they would, where President Donald Trump could ask him questions live, like, hey, why are you still attacking Ukraine after you have personally told me that you weren't going to do that over the phone? President Donald Trump has said this stuff, that they would talk on the phone, and then, they would have a great conversation, and then Putin would go and literally bomb Ukraine the same night after they had a good conversation, that he wanted peace talks, he wanted ceasefires, and then he would go and do that stuff the very same day. So, yeah, I see a question here by Marlon White. Why is Putin not arrested immediately? And that's a great question. And unfortunately, the United States does not abide by the ICC, the International Criminal Court rules, which it was surprising to me the first time I seen that. So, yeah, that was really surprising to me. So let me see here. Why does the U.S. not use ICC. The U.S. does not recognize the International Criminal Court due to concerns about its potential impact on U.S. sovereignty and protection of its citizens, particularly military personnel. These concerns stem from the ICC's ability to investigate and prosecute individuals for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide, even if they are not citizens of a state party to the Rome Statute. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't really tell me a whole lot. So, yeah, we will see here. But yeah, I would love to see Vladimir Putin go on stage here and literally kind of give some answers for, why he's still, saying that he wants peace and continues to attack here on a daily basis. It also would be interesting to see if they've come to an agreement, if they have a ceasefire. Do you think that we could see an announcement of a ceasefire by Trump and Putin? Yeah. Do you think we could see something like that? Do you think that they have come to an agreement from Trump and Putin? Do you think that something like that is possible? Do you think that Putin will actually hold his word? Because we haven't seen that. Putin says, and I've been saying this since the beginning of the war, Putin says one thing and then he does another. I remember back at the beginning of the war, I was reporting to you guys, Putin put 100,000 men on the border of Ukraine, and yet he was telling the world he's not going to attack. He's not going to attack. He's not going to attack. And yet then he goes and attacks. And I remember people still saying on our show or comments in the comment section that he's not going to attack, Jimmy. He's not going to attack. That's just fear-mongering. And I remember saying to people, well, why is he putting 100,000 troops and tanks and all this, military stuff on the border? And then literally he attacked it, a day or two later. So Putin says one thing and does another very frequently. And it is tough to take a man for their word, particularly a president of a country that has nuclear weapons, nuclear powers, thousands of them, and take them for their word when they repeatedly are, a hypocrite. They say one thing, do another. Say one thing, do another. Say one thing, do another. And, so we have seen Trump try to be strong on him here recently, and we will see what happens here. So the problem here is that you can only do so much against Russia, basically because they have nuclear weapons. I mean, we did see Trump literally just bomb Iran here recently, and if Russia didn't have nuclear weapons, we would probably be seeing similar things here. So because Trump bombed Iran, I do think that Russia, Vladimir Putin, and China seen Trump's willingness to act. And Trump is not Biden. Trump is not Biden, whether that's good nor bad. Trump is different than Biden, although Biden tried to remain strong against Putin. He armed Ukraine for 4 years, although remember, all that had to be approved by Congress. Okay, remember, Biden couldn't give anything to Ukraine without Republicans and Democrats approving that in Congress for years. Okay, that had to all go through Congress. But Trump's there now. Okay, so Trump has come in, he's bombed Iran, he says he's not going to stand for a lot of this stuff, and now we've all come to this meeting here. But to this day, Putin has not really listened to Trump in the first 6 months of his presidency. He's really just kind of done what he wanted in Ukraine. There's been no ceasefire. He hasn't really listened to Trump. He's told Trump one thing and he's done another. So, we will see what will happen here. Do you guys think that Vladimir Putin is willing to actually listen to anybody else and actually come to a peace agreement? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Yeah. And honestly, whether you're Biden, whether you're Trump, or whether you were the president of the United States, it's hard to work with somebody like Vladimir Putin who says one thing, does another, keeps attacking, and doesn't. The question is, does he really want peace, or does he just want to take over countries and do what he wants and says, hey, I'm a nuclear power, too bad. Now, we do know he's lost a lot of men. He's lost a lot of his equipment. A lot of this equipment is Soviet-era equipment. And, he's taking men that are, 18, 19 years old, putting them in the army that don't even want to be in the army. They're conscriptions. They're drafts. And Ukraine's trying to defend themselves from an invader. And the question here is, how long can this continue to go on? The other question is, how long does the world want to let this go on and let Putin keep invading? But on the other hand, do you want Putin to come out looking as a winner when he invaded another country, and let him come away looking like a winner when China could do the same thing with Taiwan? And if China can do the same thing with Taiwan at any given moment, and we have to do this all again with Taiwan, I don't think we can defend Taiwan against China. China's got 1.3 or 1.4 billion people, 4 or 5 times the population of the United States. Taiwan's just a tiny little country, not even nearly as big as Ukraine. And that's why sending the message to dictators like Putin and China, President Xi, is important, because this years-long message of we're not just going to let dictators go and take over other countries and do what they want is important, because the next thing could be China just walking in and taking over Taiwan, and U.S. has the U.S.-Taiwan Relations Act, which, depending on how you determine that, but you'd have to look into it, right? We have a somewhat act there that we would help defend Taiwan. President Biden actually said he would put boots on the ground, U.S. military men in Taiwan to defend Taiwan because of the U.S.-Taiwan Relations Act. So, yeah. Dave Whiteley says here in the chat, do you think Putin is going to change? I don't think so. Yeah, that's the problem here. But on the other hand, the war's been going on for how long now? 3.5 years? So at some point, the war has to end at some point. But the question is, does Ukraine want to give up all that land? How long can they defend themselves? Yeah. I don't think the U.S. policy is Taiwan as a province of China. I think that's China's policy, the one China policy. I think that's China's policy. I do not think that the U.S. policy is Taiwan is a private province of China, or else we would not be arming them to defend against China, and we would not have the U.S.-Taiwan Relations Act. Yeah, so you guys can let me know your thoughts here in the comment section. Yeah, so this has just been an unbelievable. Michelle says Ukraine is done. Let Russia have it. Russia has taken over. What would you say? 15% of Ukraine. So if Russia's taken over 15% of Ukraine, let Russia have it. Ukraine's not even letting Russia have Ukraine. So why would anybody let Russia have Ukraine when they've taken over 15% of Ukraine, and Russia can't even take over Ukraine after 3.5 years, when Putin thought he was going to take over Ukraine in 15 days, and here we are 3.5 years later, and Putin can't even take over Ukraine. He's maybe 15% of the way in, only on that eastern border. So, yeah. I think the problem here is that the negotiations for peace is that it looks like Ukraine's going to have to give up this occupied land. Ukraine's going to probably get nothing in return but end the war. And we go back here to that old peace treaty they had years ago where Ukraine gave the nuclear weapons to Russia back in exchange that Russia would never invade Ukraine. And here we are just, several years later, Russia's invading again. So the problem here is that if they make a peace treaty and give Russia this land permanently, who's to stop Russia from doing it again several years later again? So Russia moves its borders into Ukraine and they take over this 15% of this land or whatever that they're temporarily occupying. Who's to stop Russia from a couple years from now saying, okay, we're going to attack Ukraine again? So that's the problem. That's why Ukraine wants to join NATO or wants to join the EU, because they want to stop being attacked by Russia. They want to have more allies on their side so that they stop being attacked and they actually can have somebody help defend them, not just give them weapons, because Russia doesn't keep their word, like we've seen Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin says one thing, does another, just like they did years ago when they did the nuclear arms treaty to give Russia back their nuclear weapons that were on Ukraine's land. And they said, oh, okay, you give us back these nuclear weapons and we will never invade you. And, well, we've seen how long that lasted. That obviously didn't last that long. So Russia's, 3.5 years in, and they've only taken over 15% or so of Ukraine. So it's not going that great for Russia if 3.5 years later they've spent all these lives, all this military equipment that they've, they're spending, Soviet era equipment, and they've lost all these lives, and they're only 15% of the way into Ukraine. So if they could have taken over all of Ukraine, they would have. But the problem here is that how long does everybody want this war to go on and more lives on each side to end? The other problem here is that if this war continues, if you give the land to Russia, anybody that lives on that land is then going to basically become Russian property. So that's another problem there, is that anybody that grows up on that land, when they turn 18, will go into the Russian army. Remember that Putin drafts any 18-year-old men into the Russian army and will then fight for the Russian army and potentially die. So you have that issue there too, is that these men will become fodder for the Russian army. So, yeah, I mean, you look at, Putin took over Crimea, he's in Moldova now, basically taking that over. Now he's, 15% of Ukraine. What's next? What's next? And, if Ukraine hadn't banded together and got help from the rest of the world and actually tried to stop Vladimir Putin, he would have taken over as much as he could. And he's going to continue to do this until somebody stops him and Russia and whoever the next president of Russia is. And this is sending a big message to countries like China who want to do this to Taiwan too. So all of these things are, the world is watching right now. And they're watching Trump as well. Trump is saying, I want a ceasefire. Trump is saying, stop the war. And he's trying to get Putin to stop the war. But Putin doesn't want to come out of this war as a loser, right? He wants to come out of this war with as much as he can. So that is the problem here, is how does Putin come out of the war looking as like a winner to his country and with as much gain as he can? A lot of the the precious minerals and stuff like that are actually on the land that he controls now from Ukraine. So that is actually a concern. And remember, if Putin is given this land in a treaty, he owns that land forever. He actually kind of walks away a winner. He gets oil from there. He gets precious minerals from there. He gets all of this. He gets the people from there, right? He gets the men. He gets the women. He gets the land. He gets everything from there. I mean, imagine how much that stuff is worth for the next hundreds of years. That stuff is invaluable. And to Vladimir Putin, you got to think, is that a victory? Is that a win? Was it worth it? I mean, let me know your thoughts here in the comments section. If Ukraine is to give up 15% of their country, who's the winner here? Who's the loser? So, these are concerns. And yes, I've seen the comments in the comment sections about the Epstein files. I've definitely seen those, and that remains a big question. Are we going to see any releasing of the Epstein files? Who knows? Who knows? That might be something that people just keep asking for, and we might keep clamoring for the Epstein files, or we might not see anything on the Epstein files, and it might continue to be a virus, a plague for this administration. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? So, the thing about defunding Ukraine is that Europe is going to continue to fund Ukraine against Putin. So even if the United States doesn't, Europe is going to continue to help stop Putin. So, and we've seen President Trump take a shift here recently when Trump realized that Putin is not abiding by Trump's wishes. Putin is just flat out denying Trump. Putin doesn't care what Trump says. Putin is literally, Trump says, hey, let's have a ceasefire. Hey, let's end this war. And Putin just does the opposite. President Donald Trump has said here recently they'll have a conversation, Putin and Trump. They'll have a good conversation. Trump has said this, that they'll have a good conversation. They'll talk about peace. They'll talk about ceasefires. And then that very night, after their conversation is over, Putin will go and bomb Kyiv. And he'll send missiles and he'll send drones and all this stuff. So Putin says one thing and then he does another thing. Imagine if you were the president. Imagine if you were the president and you just had that conversation. It would be absolutely furious to you. And then you also have China and Iran that are allies of Russia and Putin. You really got to think, how close the allies are there. And, you've seen Putin back Hamas and talk about that he would help Hamas and he would, back them. And you got to kind of wonder here, what do you do in this situation? You have limited things that you can do here against Russia simply because they have nuclear weapons. So this is it is a difficult situation here. Yeah. Yeah, and Trump has said that it's difficult to do this with Ukraine, and then there could possibly be a meeting with Vladimir Putin and Zelensky after this as well. So there could be a Zelensky and Putin meeting, and I'm not sure if Putin and Zelensky have had an actual meeting at all since the war has started. Let me know in the comment section. Does anybody know that? Has there been an actual meeting? Someone said 2 million people have lost their lives in this war. Yeah, 2 million people. That's crazy. Yeah, and you got to kind of wonder here. Imagine if this war goes on another year or 2 or 3, But it's hard to give terms because if Ukraine gives up their land, they give it up forever. Imagine if you lived on that land and you were part of Ukraine and now you're going to be in Putin's army and he's going to put you in that army. And now you're going to be fighting for Russia, and he's going to put you in the front lines of that army. Yeah, imagine if you were a 20 or 30 or 40-year-old man and you lived in Ukraine that's now part of Russia, and all of a sudden he's going to force you in that army to go live there. Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody wants the war to stop. The question here is, how do you get that war to stop? Ukrainians don't want to give up their land forever to Putin. And Ukrainians that live on that land don't necessarily want to become part of Russia and don't want their children to go into Russia's army that live on that land. And they don't want to give up the resources and the oil and the precious minerals and everything that are on that land to Russia. They don't want to be taxed by Russia. They don't want to be under Russia's and Putin's control. The other problem is even if they do that, what's to prevent Putin from attacking them again in a year or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10? Because again, everything that Putin says doesn't mean he's going to keep his word. Russia said several years back when they gave back the nuclear weapons that were on Ukraine's land that they were never going to attack Ukraine again in exchange for those nuclear weapons back. And here they are attacking Ukraine several years later. So we're now literally just seeing Russia break their promise again. And again, they're always going to find a reason on why they're breaking their promise. There's always going to be a reason. So again, they could make this peace deal today or in a month, and they'll say, okay, you give us this new land, 15% of Ukraine, and we promise we'll never attack you again. And guess what? In a year from now or 2 years from now or 5 years from now, they're going to find a reason on why they can attack Ukraine again. See the problem? Or guess what? Maybe next time it won't be Ukraine. Maybe next time it will be some other country. See the problem? And remember, Russia's got nuclear weapons, so you can only do so much against Russia. Yeah, and don't forget Crimea that they took over as well. And don't forget the puppet regime they have in Moldova. Basically Putin's, under control there. So this is the problem. How do you stop the war? How do you stop the war? Yeah, this is a big concern. Yeah. So, yeah, they could attack any countries. We've seen this. Trump wants to stop Putin. He wants a ceasefire, but yet we have not seen it happen. Putin just keeps attacking. Yeah, and then Trump has threatened the up to 100% tariffs on any country that does business with Russia if Putin doesn't do a ceasefire, okay? And those main countries are China, India, and Turkey are the big three. And remember how many products we get from China, millions of them. We could actually see a 100% tariff from China if Russia doesn't stop the war. So, yeah, that's concerning even for Americans, because we could be paying 100% tariff on any products that come from China. So imagine that. Imagine paying literally double the price of anything that comes from China as opposed to if there was no tariff. So, yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. Yeah, let alone Russian vodka. I mean, I'm not sure if the U.S. is really buying hardly anything from Russia anymore. A lot of stuff from Russia has been cut off, but Trump has set 100% tariffs on any country that does business with Russia too, which the main countries would be China and India, which we do a lot of business with. Okay, so China and India, a lot of things are manufactured in those countries and then made here, shipped over here to the United States. Particularly things like TVs, smartphones. I mean, every single smartphone is not really made in the United States. Any phone you use, TVs, things like that, electronics. Think about all of these things that are made in other countries, that really aren't made in the United States. There's just so many things. And you think about if there's 100% tariff on any electronic that's not made in the United States, and all these chips and stuff like that, and really just parts of goods, right? So let's say that there's a chip that a car needs, and now all of a sudden that car needs a chip, and they got to pay 100% tariff on that. That part of the car will be more expensive now, so that will make part of a car go up. or part of a microwave go up, part of anything go up because of a 100% tariff. You know, so this is concerning as well. You know, President Donald Trump said earlier today before the meeting that if there wasn't a ceasefire agreement today, that he was going to be severely disappointed. If there wasn't a ceasefire agreement today from Putin, that he would be severely disappointed. Yeah. So that's the question is do you think that Vladimir Putin would actually do a ceasefire today? Yeah. So, yeah, Trump says he won't be happy if Putin does not agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine during the Alaska summit. Yeah. So the question here is Trump going to walk away happy or unhappy because he gets a ceasefire or he doesn't? Will Vladimir Putin agree to a ceasefire today? That is what the world is hoping for. And honestly, I mean, when you see the comments here, everybody wants a ceasefire today. Everybody wants a ceasefire. I mean, there's almost, I don't see hardly anybody that wants this war to continue to go on. Okay? Unless you're, hardly anybody wants this war to go on. Everybody wants a ceasefire, except for Putin. Okay? Putin, for some reason, thinks that he's going to continue to take over all of Ukraine for some reason, even though it's been 3.5 years and he's only 15% of the way into Ukraine. Okay? So this is the problem, but he just continues to defy Trump. Trump wants a ceasefire and it doesn't happen. So he's there in the United States today. When was the last time Putin was in the United States? Yeah. Could you imagine if an incident happened there today with Putin there in the United States? I mean, think about this. We've had President Donald Trump assassination attempts on Trump. Imagine if there was one on Putin there today, right? I mean, think about this. We have people literally doing this to Trump. Imagine if somebody did this to Putin there while he was in Alaska. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something? and we would be like, what do you want us to do? People are literally doing it to Trump, our own president, let alone you. You're here in the United States. Could you actually imagine that? Could you actually imagine that? That would literally be unbelievable. So, yeah. That Secret Service there has quite a job. If you've seen them walking off the plane, there's a lot of woods way there in the back. And who knows? Who knows what could actually happen there? Yeah, it would be quite the security thing to actually protect that area with all that place to protect, man. You would need hundreds of security agents protecting all that woods and stuff. With all of that, it would just be a nightmare. It's just trying to even think about protecting all that stuff out there. Yeah. Yeah. Really, really tough to protect all that stuff out there. Yeah, Trump is definitely going to try to be hard on Putin today, but I think it's going to be a difficult assessment to, Putin's not going to want to just agree with everything Trump wants, but no, we are still waiting for the meeting. We are still waiting for the meeting for them to come out. Yeah. We are still waiting for the meeting. Trump says he won't be happy if Putin does not agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine. I'm hoping that this will be a successful meeting, and I'm hoping that Putin will keep his word. That might be the harder problem here. Is Vladimir Putin keeping his word? Yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on Vladimir Putin keeping his word? Remember, a former KGB asset keeping his word. China watching and waiting. We got Iran watching and waiting. And Trump wants to come out of this looking like a winner, and Vladimir Putin wants to come out of this looking like a winner. So, yeah. All of this is definitely going to be a tough one. Well, yeah. Yeah, so the question here is, how well is this meeting going? It looks like it's going good because of the length of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let me know your thoughts here in the comment section. I love these guys taking these pictures here with just a blank background. Hillary Clinton says that she would nominate Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize if he ends Ukraine war without giving territory to Russia. Hillary Clinton, Trump's former rival on the campaign trail, says in a podcast that if Mr. Trump can secure an end to the war in Ukraine without ceding territory to Russia, she would nominate him herself for the Nobel Peace Prize. She says, quote, honestly, if he could bring about the end to this terrible war where Putin is the aggressor, invading a neighbor country, trying to change the borders, if he could end it without putting Ukraine in a position where it had to concede its territory to the aggressor, in a way validate Putin's vision of a greater Russia, but instead could really stand up to Putin, something we haven't seen, maybe this is the opportunity. Yeah. See, I think that is the problem, is that can we actually how do you get Russia to end this war and that's the problem, is Ukraine doesn't want to give up territory. Do you think that they're I've even seen some comments, I think that they were from Ukrainian officials, that says that they might be on the place where they think that they know that they have to give up some territory. And that's the hard part, is that, remember, when you're ceding this territory to Russia, it's forever. It's forever. It's not, it's for the next hundreds and thousands of years. And the other problem is what's to prevent Russia from attacking again in 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And Russia would just say, oh, well, for this reason or for that reason, we're going to attack you now. And again, though, Russia can always come up with a reason on why they're going to attack again. So, yeah. So this is the problem. People are talking about the ICC, the International Criminal Court, and all the stuff that Vladimir Putin has been found guilty of, and just nothing will happen to Putin. He won't be found. He won't be nothing. There'll be no punishment for all those crimes. Just he'll actually be awarded land and go about his day, and then just start looking for the next plan, the next the next thing to take over. So this is why it's so complicated. It's so complex here that I see the comment there that Russia already took it. Yes, Russia temporarily controls 15% of Ukraine's land. So temporarily. The question is do you give them control of that for the rest of eternity, for the next 100 years, for the next 200 years? So, yeah, this is the problem, right? Remember, Russia used to control Alaska, and it was sold in a land deal. And some Russian politicians have recently said, don't, you could look it up, but Russia recently said that, don't piss them off. They'll take it back. Alaska used to be part of Russia. So, herein lies the rub, is that you can't, do you give away Ukraine's land because of, Russia temporarily controls it, 15% of it. And then Vladimir Putin's going to take anybody that lives on that land, any men, and put him in his Russian army immediately. So there's a lot of consequences here to all these actions. And Ukraine doesn't want to give up their land. I do think that Trump is doing the best job he can with Vladimir Putin, because it's a really tough situation. What do you do? What do you do with Vladimir Putin if you're the United States president? There's only so much you can do. He just bombed Iran. He showed a lot of strength. He's shown that he is willing to take action. You can only take so much action against Russia. They have nuclear weapons. Not many people want to actually start a war with Russia, right? I mean, I don't think that many Americans want to go to war with Russia, right? Two nuclear powers. So I think that Trump is doing as good of a job as he can with Vladimir Putin. It's a very sticky situation. So they're having this meeting. He's going to try to get a ceasefire. He said that if he doesn't get a ceasefire today, let me see here. What was his quote here? Is that if he doesn't get a ceasefire, let me see here. Trump says he won't be happy if Putin does not agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine today. So, you know, what are you going to do? How do you force Putin to do a ceasefire? You know, and, you know, how do you force that? So we'll see. We'll see, right? I mean, we hope there's a ceasefire. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, and I mean, same thing with Biden. Biden had a tough time dealing with Putin too, right? I mean, they armed Ukraine. All of those arms came from Congress. Republicans and Democrats had to approve it. And, you know, again, Putin did what he wanted. Did what he wanted. So, you know, imagine you're the president. Put yourself in the president's shoes. You know, not Biden, not Trump, but you yourself are the president. And now you're dealing with Putin. What do you say or do to try to get the ceasefire, try to get him to stop? And remember, you're going to have a phone conversation or with him today, and then he's going to say, oh, yeah, this and that. And then at the end of the day, he's going to go home and bomb Kiev. So, you know, he's going to say one thing and do another, you know, so this is the problem, right? You know, he's going to do what he wants. Yeah, it's not Trump's land to give. Trump actually said that in an interview earlier today, that at the end of the day, Ukraine's got to make these decisions. But I wouldn't put it past Trump to be really in there kind of just making a lot of negotiations on his own. I just think that that's kind of Trump's personality, right? And I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing, but I do think that Trump's kind of in there making some negotiations, just kind of just there, just kind of spitballing and just kind of talking, saying, we need this done, we need that done, we need to have this ceasefire, what's it going to take, how do we get this done, you know, et cetera, and how do we make this happen, right? And although they might not necessarily ink an actual end to the war today, you know, you might need Zelensky's approval and even Ukraine's congressional approval from their Congress. We could get a ceasefire today. Remember, Trump says that he really wants a ceasefire agreement today. Okay? So if he wants a ceasefire agreement today, he's going to have the authority to do that today. Okay, so yeah, the question is, yeah, I see Debbie's comment there. He is offering him something for a ceasefire today. Does he need to offer him something for a ceasefire? What would that be? Yeah, maybe he's just pressuring him for a ceasefire, saying we need a ceasefire badly. Yeah, we need a ceasefire badly. How do we get this done? How do we get a ceasefire done? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're to the point that Putin won't stop unless he gets a concession of land. Do you guys agree with that? Let me know in the comments section, yes or no. Yeah, I mean, we all want peace on Earth, but unfortunately, this war is over land and resources and everything that's on that land, which is the people and all of that stuff, right? So, uh, yeah, therein lies the problem. Yeah, and I mean, so let me know in the comments section. What would you do if you're Zelensky, right? Let's say you're the president of Ukraine. Put yourself in his shoes. How do you how do you what would you do? Say you're the president of Ukraine. How do you get your how do you get the end of the war there? Or what do you do? Yeah, really, really tough situation. I mean, it's got to be tough for Ukraine. Yeah, give up. I mean, honestly, why would you give it up? Russia's only 15% of the way in. Would you would give up the 15%? Honestly, think about it. Putin won't even do a ceasefire. They've tried to do a ceasefire with Putin. He won't even do a ceasefire. Even Trump hasn't been able to get Putin to do a ceasefire. That's what he's trying to get today. So, yeah, and I mean, that's a good comment there in the comment section. Do you think 15% of the land is going to even make Russia and Putin happy? What's to stop them from again doing this again and say, oh, we're going to attack you again in another year, another 2 years, another 5 years? What's to stop them from doing this again? You know, this is the problem is that, you know, Putin can literally come up with any number of reasons after they potentially get a treaty to end the war and give up 15% of the land to Ukraine, whatever percentage that is that they control now, and then in a year from now go in and attack again and say, oh well, Ukraine did this or Ukraine did that or whatever reason they want to come up with, and say, well, we're attacking again. We're going to go try to take over more land. So there's literally, this could happen again in a year or two. And then what? And then what? So this isn't Russia's first time around, right? Therein lies the problem. Yeah, Zelensky would commit to a ceasefire, but Putin hasn't committed to a ceasefire. Putin has not committed to a ceasefire. So that's the problem. There has been no ceasefire from Putin. Even Trump hasn't been able to get a ceasefire out of Putin. So even Trump recently, over the, I don't know what, the last month or so, has said he'll have these great conversations with Putin. They'll talk about a ceasefire, they'll talk about ending the war, etc., and then Putin goes and bombs Ukraine 2 hours after their meeting. And he sends missiles into apartments, right? So how are you going to get a ceasefire when Putin says, oh, yeah, okay, great, and then an hour later he's, bombing apartment buildings and hospitals? Right? It's kind of difficult to get a ceasefire out of Putin when that's what you're working with. Yeah. So this is literally just in the past several days, and this is coming directly from President Donald Trump. So yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I mean, so let's say Ukraine gets rid of Zelensky, right? And then they just put another president in there. I don't think it makes a difference, right? Do things change for Ukraine? I mean, let me know your thoughts here in the comments section, right? I think Ukraine is still under the same position. Do they want to give up their land? I mean, I think it's still the same position where Ukraine wants to still do the same thing, where they don't necessarily want to give up their land, but they might have to achieve peace. The problem is, can you trust Russia? Who here trusts Russia? Let me know in the comments section. Do you trust Russia? Okay, we have a bunch of people showing up now. So looks like we might be getting the meeting here. Lots of people coming in here. Yeah, hey, how you doing? Yeah, we're look like we're getting close here. A bunch of people have come in here, and yeah, interesting comment there about Putin on U.S. soil. All right, getting over a little bit of a cold here, but
Yeah, I don't. Looks good to you guys. Okay. I believe so.
yeah, if you haven't yet, subscribe. I'll keep you up to date and help me reach 500,000 subscribers. Getting pretty close. Yeah, over 230 million people have watched my channel. Pretty crazy. Trump says, quote, "I'm not here to negotiate for Ukraine." But do you think that's really true? Do you think Trump is kind of there to negotiate for Ukraine? Yeah, hello there from Indiana. Let me know where you guys are tuning in from. What state, city are you guys from? Let me know in the comments section. Do I think they could end the war before the year is done? Yeah, I definitely think they could. I definitely think they could end the war before the year is done. And I think that Trump is growing tired of that. Remember, Trump said that he would have the war ended by day one of his presidency, basically that he would negotiate a peace treaty by the day that he came into office. So he thought he would have it negotiated by the day he came in office. And that has not happened. So I think Trump is really growing very, very tired of this. And I'm sure a lot of people are. So, you know, not to mention the lives that have been lost. And, you know, this has been a serious problem. This has been a serious detriment to Russia's military, you know, and people that, you know, their lives there and their military stockpiles. And they've only been able to take over 15% of Ukraine. So, you know, this hasn't boded well for Russia at all. You know, they thought that they would end the war in a few days, that they would just go in there and take over Ukraine. And 3.5 years later, they've only taken over 15% of Ukraine. So, you know, this can't be you know, a huge win for Russia. But I will say that if they do end up getting 15% of Ukraine's land permanently, that is kind of a win for Russia, right? You know, they get all the land, they get all the resources there. There's a lot of rare earth minerals there, precious minerals there, some oil there. They get the people that live on that land. They get to tax those people. Those people get to go into the Russian army forever, right? That's now part of Russia forever. So, you know, you got to think that, is that a win for Russia? You know, let me know in the comment section. Do you think that Russia comes out a victor in that sense, even though it's taken them 3.5 years to just move 15% of the way into Ukraine, and Ukraine has defended very valiantly, and, you know, Russia's only moved 15% of the way in. Does that make Russia come out a victor in the way? You know, you know, Russia thought that they would take over all of Ukraine in a matter of days, and that hasn't happened. Yeah, I think everybody wants the war to end, but how do we get it done? And, you know, Putin's attacking on a daily basis, even though he tells Trump, oh yeah, I want to end the war, and then he keeps dropping bombs.
You're out of DC, right? This is at DC IFB.
Okay, this is our kind of fresh people again. I've asked. Sorry.
Lurch.
Just warning you.
Love is okay. It's your choice.
Yeah, Julian's doing good. He's in baseball. He's in wrestling, doing swimming. He's kept us very busy. He's kept us very busy this summer.
Just to make you aware.
What have you guys been doing this summer? Let me know in the comments section.
Техническая проверка. 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126.
Good day. Just double checking our last minute translation booths, making sure everyone is getting everything is needed. Again, you should be having English in your English only modes.
Can you guys
The
hear
floor
those?
gets,
Hear those
both,
announcers?
Everything at the same time. On your headsets, it should be 00 floor, 01 should be English, and 02 should be Russian on your headsets. So again, just doing a couple last minute checks, making sure everything is going through as it should. Thank you.
Кремлевский пул, у вас все хорошо, все нормально? Камеры, покажите, пожалуйста, большой палец, что все нормально. Все, спасибо большое.
All right, cool. I think when it starts, I'll switch to removing myself out of the corner so you guys can see full screen. Okay, so we are getting reports that Trump and Putin's meeting is over. They had a 3-on-3 meeting as opposed to a 1-on-1 meeting. So we are getting reports that their meeting is over, and their personal meeting lasted at least 2 hours plus. So, wow, that was a long meeting. And the Kremlin has announced that Putin and Trump are going to give a joint news conference. So, yeah, here we go. it's interesting because when Putin got off the plane and was standing there with Trump, a journalist yelled out to Putin, and he yelled out to Putin if he would stop killing civilians. And Putin went like this and acted like he couldn't hear him instead of answering. So you guys can let me know your thoughts on that. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of questions we get here at this meeting. And what Putin might answer. And what kind of questions he might be hit with. Yeah, that's why I'm really shocked that Putin would actually do a press conference like this. He's not known to do a lot of live press conferences at all since the war has started because of this type of stuff. In fact, he's actually been booed in several instances when he's, since the war has started for obvious reasons. So, I don't think that will happen here, but we will see what kind of questions he will be asked. Honestly, it's a pretty intimidating thing to really have the gall to ask a question like that to Vladimir Putin. Can you imagine being a reporter and asking Vladimir Putin a question like that or something? Like, do you plan to stop killing civilians? Wow. It would be... Yeah, does he speak English or understand? So I'm pretty sure that Vladimir Putin speaks a little bit of English, but there will be translators. So I know there's a Russian translator and an English translator. So there will be translators. So, but I know that he speaks a little bit because when he got off the plane, he was speaking to Donald Trump himself personally, just those two. But there will be translators for both English and Russian. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think he speaks super fluent English because then they probably wouldn't need a translator, but there will be translators, so that kind of gives you an idea for how much. In a short clip shared on Telegram, Russian defense minister asked by Russian state news agency TASS how his mood after the Putin and Trump meeting was. He said, "Excellent," he says, smiling after the meeting ended. To give you an idea of how the Russian defense minister feels after the meeting just ended. So I think he was one of the two other people that sat in on the meeting. So at least that's what they're saying. I don't think Russia's going to come out of the meeting and say, oh, we feel terrible. But we will see. Now, I do think that Donald Trump would possibly say something like that if there was no progress made. But with such a long meeting, I do think that there was some progress made. President Donald Trump had said here previously that he would be able to tell within the first couple minutes that if there was going to be, I don't remember his exact words, but if there was going to be progress made, and he gave it a 25% chance that he said something like that there would be no progress made at all, and he would know very quickly. So I do think that with a 2-hour plus meeting, that there was some progress made at the bare minimum. At the bare minimum. And President Donald Trump says that he's expecting a ceasefire agreement today. Now, whether or not Putin's going to do that is another story. So,
None of these three are. We're putting a train station blind.
yeah. All right, I think they're getting ready for everybody to come out. Do me a favor, share this video on social media as the presidents are getting ready to sign out so that more people can see this video.
Better. You don't have the adapter?
So share this video for me so that we can get as many people on here as the presidents are about to come out.
Do a USB-C hardwired.
Does that work on USB-C?
Mm-hmm. What are the new cell phones?
Yeah, I do have that cable. I just need a new one now.
Yeah, it's fine. The flip phones are a little.
I think this is going to be absolutely amazing that we're actually getting a press conference here with Putin and Trump. Is there any questions you would give to Putin? Let me know in the comments section. That's a good thought. Are there any questions you would have for Putin?
No.
How many years married? So we've been married since 2011, and then we were together for 7 years before that. So we've been married or together for like almost 20 years, and yeah, It's been a long, amazing ride with Laurel. Yeah, thank you.
Back, mister. Sir.
We're losing fight.
Okay, so apparently there's two Russians sitting in the front row. One of the reporters in the room where the news conference is due to be held has just spotted Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov sitting in the front row alongside Finance Minister Anton Silyov. It's hard to pronounce that name. And I think it is these two guys over here. And I think these two guys are the two guys that possibly sat in the meeting with Putin and Trump. So these two guys over here on the left, right here, all the way on the left here, I think these two guys are the Russian Defense Minister and the Russian Finance Minister. Yeah. Very interesting. I think that's the front row. I can't tell if that other guy there is next to them or not, or if they just have the two front seats. Well, you've been married 52 years. Congratulations. That's a long time. That's amazing. That's longer than I am old. I'm 44 years old, so congratulations. Yeah, we're doing good. We've been very busy with swimming and baseball and wrestling and summer stuff. So yeah, the Trump-Putin meeting is over. Yeah, they have confirmed the meeting is over. And two of the Russian people that were in the meeting are sitting in the front row all the way on the left there. The guy with the all-white hair and the guy that's next to him and the furthest guy on the far left there. And that is the Russian Defense Minister and the Russian Finance Minister. So, yeah, we are expecting Putin and Trump here soon. And the meeting must have gone decently well for it to be at least a 2-hour plus meeting. So, it's not like there was, just a quick shutdown and it was a 10-minute meeting. Yeah, for sure, David. Yeah, so I got a lot of cool stuff on my desk. So those shorts right there are signed by Sylvester Stallone. That that's a Rocky statue. This is a 1956 Yankees World Series signed baseball, signed by the whole team, signed by Mickey Mantle, and signed by 4 Hall of Famers, Whitey Ford, and there was a perfect game thrown in the World Series. And this was the only World Series that had a perfect game thrown there. And this baseball was shown on Pawn Stars. And the minute the Pawn Stars episode aired, the episode is called E.T. Phone Chum. I went on the Pawn Stars website and it was still for sale, and I went and bought it. So really cool story there. This is the card that Pawn Stars sent me about the World Series Yankees baseball. Not really a Yankees fan per se, but I thought it was a really cool story. The guy found it in his dad's attic, and it's obviously a one-of-a-kind baseball. So that's really cool. That's a Nolan Ryan signed baseball. So that's cool. I got that at the Baseball Hall of Fame. And back behind me over there is a Mike Tyson signed glove. So if you can see that, that's a Mike Tyson signed glove. Yeah, the baseball is authenticated by a PSA. I have a card, PSA I think it was, so that was authenticated already. You could go watch the episode by Pawn Stars, so that was a really cool thing there. So yeah, I got some really cool stuff here in the office. So yeah, I got some cool stuff in here. I got probably some other cool stuff in here too that I can't see because it's all behind me, but yeah, got some cool stuff for you guys to look at here while while you're watching videos and stuff here. But yeah, definitely some cool stuff here. Yeah, I love the Rocky movies and just the journey, the story about Rocky and work hard and you can become anything in life. That's definitely been my motto in life, and I think that that is the same for most people in life. Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to teach my son. My son's in wrestling now at age 7, stuff like that. Yeah, hey Candace, hey everybody, how's it going? What are you guys up to? Yeah, very cool. Pedro Martinez signed jersey. Did you get it signed yourself? We actually tried to stand in line here recently to meet Hulk Hogan with my son, and there was like 2,000 people in line, and there were so many people in line they stopped letting people wait. It was literally too long. Yeah. Oh, very cool.
I don't see it.
Okay, the Russian ambassador to the U.S. says that the atmosphere in the talks was positive on the whole. Russian Ambassador Alexander Darchev says, according to Russian media.
At 5, go straight back that way. It was somewhere in Russia.
Russian envoy Kirill Dmitry tells Interfax news agency that the Trump meeting has gone incredibly well. Images shared on Telegram by other Russian outlets confirm that they were grinning and taking seats. They skirted questions. They skirted other questions and said, in just a second, we'll hear about it.
Okay, off then.
I mean, I'll Gumby, but not that far.
The other Wi-Fi is totally dead. Is it working?
Yeah, thank you so much to you guys, like Sherry and Dope Dwarf, to guys who watch every single day. You guys are amazing, and as you guys know, I always try to be fair and a realist when I report the news. You know, and sometimes it goes one way, sometimes it goes another. And if you guys have been watching me for a long time, you guys know that. And that's just how things go. You know, I always try to be pretty fair with things. You know, we've been there through Trump and through Biden, Trump times 2, and Trump times 2 is just getting started here. We got three and a half more years of Trump. So, yeah. Normally I'm on at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every day. I actually went on a little bit early today because I thought that this meeting was going to start, and then they have just gone on for a while. But they have confirmed that the meeting between Putin and Trump has ended. So we are just waiting for them to come out. And now we've had all these reporters and VIPs that have taken their seats. So we are now ready for them to come out. So Trump and Putin have ended their meeting, and we are just waiting on them. Yeah, if you haven't yet, subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notifications when we go live every day. I'll keep you up to date here with everything going on a daily basis. Trump's special envoy just entered the room, Stephen Witkoff, who was in the meeting with the two presidents. He just walked into the room where the news conference is being held. Yeah, unfortunately, the international warrant, the United States will not uphold it because the United States does not uphold the International Criminal Court in the United States, believe it or not.
She may have to give up on this. Let's see.
No, I'm going to take myself out of the corner when they start, so I will pause it briefly, take myself out of the corner, and then start it again when they start.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States of America
All right,
and
here
the
we go.
President of the Russian Federation.
Give me 1 second.
Уважаемый господин президент,
Mr. President,
дамы и господа,
ladies and gentlemen,
наши переговоры
our negotiations have been held in a constructive atmosphere of mutual
были
respect.
весьма
We
обстоятельными и
had very
полезными.
thorough negotiations that were quite useful. I would like to thank once again my American counterpart
предложение
for the
приехать на
proposal
Аляску.
to travel out here to
Вполне
Alaska.
логично
It
встретиться
only
именно
makes sense
здесь,
that we've met
ведь
here,
наши страны,
because our
хоть нас
countries,
разделяют океаны,
though
на самом
separated by the
деле
ocean,
близкие
are
соседи.
close neighbors.
И я, когда мы встретились,
So when we've met,
вышли из самолетов, я так
when I
сказал:
came out of the plane and I've said,
добрый день, дорогой
good afternoon,
сосед,
dear
очень
neighbor,
приятно видеть вас
very good to see you,
в добром здравии
in good
и
health,
живым.
and to see you
И
alive.
по-соседски это очень
I think that is very
звучит,
neighborly,
по-моему, по-доброму.
and I think that's some
Нас разделяет только
kind words
Берингов
that we can
пролив,
say
да
to
и
each
то,
other.
там два
We're
острова
separated by the Strait of
между
Bering, though there are two islands
российским
only
и
between the Russian
американским
island
островом,
and
всего
the
4
US island. They're only 4
Мы
kilometers
близкие
apart.
соседи.
We're close neighbors,
Важно
and it's a
также,
fact.
что с Аляской связана
It's also
значительная
important
часть
that
общей
Alaska
истории
has to
России
do with our
и
common
США.
heritage,
Многие
common history between
позитивные
Russia and the
события.
US, and
Так,
many
здесь и
positive
по
events
сей день
have to do with that
сохраняется
territory.
огромное культурное
Still, there is
наследие
tremendous
после русской
cultural heritage back
православные
from the
храмы,
Russian America. For example,
множество,
Orthodox
более
churches
700
and a
географических
lot of
названий,
more than
имеющих русское
700
происхождение.
geographical names of Russian
В ходе
origin.
Второй мировой войны
During the
именно на
Second World
Аляске
War, it was here
начиналась
in
легендарная
Alaska that was the
авиамагистраль
origin
для
of the
поставок
legendary
боевых
air bridge
самолетов
for
и
the
другой
supply of military
техники по
aircraft and
договору
other equipment
Ленд-Лиза.
under the Land-Lease
Это был
program.
опасный,
It was a
сложный
dangerous
маршрут
and treacherous
над
route
громадными ледяными
over the
пространствами
vast
Но летчики и
emptiness
специалисты
of
двух
ice.
стран делали все,
However, the
чтобы
pilots of
приблизить
both countries
победу,
did everything
рисковали,
to bring closer the
отдавали
victory.
свои жизни.
They
в
risked
общей
their
победе.
lives and
Вот
they
я
gave it
сейчас
all for the
только
common
что был
victory.
в городе Магадане,
I was
в
just
России, там
in the city of
памятник
Magadan in Russia, and there is a memorial there dedicated to the Russian and the U.S. pilots. And there are two flags, the U.S. flag and the Russian flag. And I know that here as well, there is such a memorial. There is a military burial place several kilometers away from here. The Soviet pilots that buried there who died during that dangerous mission. We're thankful to the citizens and the government of the U.S. for carefully taking care of their memory. I think that's very worthy and noble. We'll always remember other historical examples when our countries defeated common enemies together in the spirit of battle camaraderie and allyship that supported each other and facilitated each other. I'm sure that this heritage will help us rebuild and foster mutually beneficial and equal ties at this new stage, even during the hardest
Как известно,
conditions.
российско-американские
It
встречи
is
в
known
верхах
that there have
не
been
проводились более
no
4 лет.
summits between Russia and the U.S.
Это
for
большой
4
срок.
years, and
Минувший
that's
период
a
был
long
очень
time.
непростым для двухсторонних
This time was
отношений.
very
И,
hard
скажем
for
прямо,
bilateral
они
relations, and
скатились
let's be
до самой
frank,
низкой
they've fallen
точки
to
со
the
времен
lowest
Холодной войны,
point
и это
since
не идет на
the Cold
пользу
War.
ни нашим
I think
странам,
that's
да, и
not
миру
benefiting
в
our
целом.
countries and the world as a
Очевидно,
whole.
что рано или поздно
apparent
нужно
that
было
sooner or
выправлять
later
ситуацию,
we had
переходить от
to amend the
конфронтации к
situation to
диалогу.
move on
И
from
в
the
этом плане
confrontation
личная
to
встреча
dialogue.
глав
And in
двух
this case, a
государств
personal
реально
meeting
назрела.
between the heads of
Конечно,
state
с
has
условием
been long
серьезной и
overdue.
кропотливой
Naturally,
подготовки. И такая
under the
работа
condition of
в целом
serious and
была
painstaking work,
проделана.
this
У
work
нас
has
с
been done in
президентом
general.
Трампом установились
Me and
очень
President
хорошие
Trump have
прямые
very good
контакты.
direct
Мы
contact.
неоднократно
We've
и
spoken
откровенно
multiple times. We spoke
разговаривали по
frankly
телефону.
on the phone.
К нам, как известно, в Россию несколько раз приезжал
And
спецпредставитель
special envoy
президента США,
of
господин
the president, Mr. Woodruff,
Регулярно
traveled out to Russia
контактировали
several
наши
times.
помощники и главы
Our
внешнеполитических
advisors and
ведомств.
heads of foreign
Как вы
ministries
хорошо
kept in
знаете,
touch all the
понимаете,
time.
одним из
And you
центральных
know fully
вопросов
well that one of
стала
the
ситуация
central
вокруг
issues
Украины. Мы
was the
видим
situation
стремление
around
администрации
Ukraine.
США
We see
и
the strive
лично
of the
президента Трампа
administration and
содействовать
President Trump
разрешению
personally to
украинского
help
конфликта.
facilitate
Его
the
желание
resolution of
вникнуть
the
в
Ukrainian
суть
conflict
и
and his
понять
strive
его
to
историю.
get to the
Я не раз
crux of
говорил,
the
что
matter to
для
understand
России
its
события
history
на Украине
is
связаны с
precious.
фундаментальными
As I've
угрозами
said,
нашей национальной
the situation
безопасности.
in Ukraine
Более
has to
того,
do with
мы
fundamental
всегда
threats to
считали
our
и
security.
считаем
Moreover,
украинский
we've
народ,
always
я говорил об
considered
этом неоднократно,
the
братским,
Ukrainian
как
nation,
это
and
ни
I've said
странно
it multiple
прозвучит,
times, a
в
brotherly
сегодняшних
nation.
условиях.
However
У
strange
нас
it may
одни корни,
sound
и все
in these conditions,
и все
we have
происходящее
the same
для
roots,
нас
and everything
это
that's
трагедия
happening
и
is a
тяжелая
tragedy
боль.
for us, a
Поэтому
terrible wound.
наша страна искренне
Therefore, the
заинтересована в
country
том,
is
чтобы
sincerely
положить
interested
этому
in
конец.
putting an end
Но
to
при
it.
этом мы убеждены,
At the same time,
чтобы
we're convinced
украинское
that in
урегулирование
order
носило
to
устойчивый и
make
долгосрочный
the
характер,
settlement
должны быть устранены все
lasting and long
первопричины
term, we need
кризиса,
to
о
eliminate
которых
all the
говорили
primary roots,
неоднократно.
the
Обеспечен
primary
учет всех
causes of that
законных
conflict. And we've said it
озабоченностей
multiple
России,
times, to
восстановлен
consider all
справедливый
legitimate
баланс в
concerns
сфере
of Russia and
безопасности в
to
Европе и в
reinstate a
мире в
just
целом.
balance
Я
of
согласен с
security in
президентом
Europe and in the
Трампом, он
world on
сегодня
the whole.
говорил об
And I
этом,
agree with President
что,
Trump, as he has said today,
должна быть
that naturally
обеспечена и
the
безопасность
security
Украины.
of Ukraine should be ensured as well.
мы готовы над
Naturally,
этим работать.
we are prepared to work
Хочется
on that.
надеяться, что достигнутое нами
I would
понимание
like to hope that the
позволит
agreement that we've
приблизиться к той
reached
цели
together will
и
help
откроет
us
дорогу
bring
к миру
closer
на
that goal and
Украине.
will pave
Мы
the
рассчитываем,
path
что
towards
в
peace
Киеве
in
и
Ukraine.
европейских
We
столицах
expect that Kiev
воспримут
and European
все это в
capitals will
конструктивном
perceive
ключе
that
и не станут
constructively
чинить
and that
никаких
they won't throw a
препятствий.
wrench
Не
in the
будут
works.
предпринимать
They
попыток
will
за
not
счет
make any
провокаций или
attempts
закулисных интриг
to use some
сорвать
backroom dealings to
намечающийся
conduct
прогресс.
provocations to torpedo the nascent progress.
Кстати, с приходом новой администрации
Incidentally,
США
when the new
двусторонний
administration
товарооборот
came to
начал
power,
нас
bilateral
повышаться.
trade started to grow.
Носит пока такой символический характер, но
It's
все-таки
still very
плюс
symbolic.
20%.
Still, we
Я
have
говорю о том, что у нас много
a growth of
интересных
20%. As I've said, we have a lot of dimensions for joint
Очевидно,
work.
что
It
российско-американское
is
деловое
clear that
и
the US
инвестиционное
and
партнерство
Russian
имеет огромный
investment and business
потенциал. России и США
cooperation has
есть что
tremendous
предложить
potential.
друг другу в
Russia and the
торговле,
US can
энергетике,
offer each
цифровой
other so
сфере,
much in
высоких
trade,
технологиях и
digital,
освоении
high-tech,
космоса.
and in
Актуально
space
видится их
exploration.
взаимодействие в Арктике,
We see
возобновление
that Arctic
межрегиональных
cooperation
контактов,
is
в том
also
числе
very
между нашими
possible,
нашим
and
Дальним
our
Востоком и
international
американским
context,
западным
for example,
побережьем.
between the Far East
В
of
общем,
Russia and the west
нашим
coast of the
странам
US.
важно и
Overall,
нужно
it's very important
перелистнуть
for our
страницу
countries to
и
turn the
вернуться
page,
к сотрудничеству.
to go back to
Символично,
cooperation.
что
It is
неподалеку
symbolic
на
that not
границе
far away from
России
here,
и
the
США, как
border
я уже
between
говорил,
Russia and the
проходит
US,
так
there
называемая
is a
линия
so-called
перемены
international
дат,
date line.
где можно буквально перешагнуть
I think you can step
вчера в
over
завтра.
literally from yesterday into tomorrow.
Надеюсь, что у нас так и
And I
получится
hope that we'll succeed in
в
that.
политической сфере.
In political
Я хотел бы
sphere.
поблагодарить
I would
господина
like to
Трампа
thank
за
President
совместную
Trump
работу,
for our
за
joint work,
доброжелательный и доверительный
for the
тон беседы.
well-wishing and
Главное, что с
trustworthy
обеих
tone of
сторон
our
был настроен
conversation.
на
It's important that
результат.
both
Мы
sides
видим, что
are
президент США имеет
result-oriented, and we
четкое
see that the
представление о
President of the
том,
US
чего
has a
хочет
very clear
добиться,
idea of
искренне
what he would
заботится о
like to
процветании
achieve.
своей
He
страны
sincerely
и в то
cares
же
about
время
prosperity of his
проявляет
nation.
понимание наличия в России
Still, he
своих
understands
национальных
that
интересов.
Russia has its own
Рассчитывает, что
national
сегодняшние
interests. I
договоренности
expect that
станут
today's
опорной
agreements
точкой
will
не
be
только для
the
решения
starting
украинской
point,
проблемы,
not
но
only
и
for the
положит
solution of
начало
the Ukrainian
восстановлению
issue,
деловых,
but also will help
прагматичных
us bring
отношений
back
между
business-like
Россией
and
и
pragmatic
США. Ну и
relations
в
between Russia
завершение
and the US.
хотел бы вот что
And in the
добавить.
end, I would like to
Я
add one
помню,
more
что
thing.
в
I'd like to
2022
remind you that
году
in
во время
2022,
последних контактов с
during the
прежней
last
администрацией, я
contact
тогда
with the previous
пытался
administration,
убедить
I tried to
своего
convince
прежнего американского
my
коллегу в
previous
том,
American
что
colleague
не нужно доводить до
it
ситуации
the situation should not be
после наступления, которые могут наступить
brought to the
тяжелые
point
последствия в виде
of no
боевых
return
действий.
when it would come
И
to
прямо сказал
hostilities.
тогда,
And I
что
said
это
it quite
большая
directly
ошибка.
back then that it's a big
И
mistake.
вот сегодня мы слышим, когда президент Трамп
Today,
говорит,
when
что если бы
President
я
Trump
был
saying that
президентом, то войны
if he
бы
was
не
the
было.
president back then, there will be
Я
no
думаю,
war.
что так бы
And I'm
на самом деле
quite
и
sure that it
случилось.
would
Я
indeed be so.
подтверждаю
I
это,
can confirm that.
потому что в целом у
I
нас
think that
с
overall,
президентом Трампом
me and President
наладился
Trump
очень хороший
have built a very
деловой и
good
доверительный
business-like and
контакт.
trustworthy
И
contact.
у меня есть все основания
And I
полагать,
have
что
every
двигаясь
reason
по
to
этому
believe that
пути, мы
moving
можем
down this path,
дойти и до,
we can
и
come
чем быстрее, тем лучше,
and the sooner the
до
better,
завершения конфликта
to the
в
end
Украине.
of the conflict
Благодарю
in
вас
Ukraine.
за
Thank you.
внимание.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. That was very profound. Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Ratcliffe, thank you very much. But we have some of our really great leaders. They've been doing a phenomenal job. We also have some tremendous Russian business representatives here, and I think everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world in a very short period of time, and we look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some great progress today. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax that made it a little bit tougher to deal with, but he understood it. I think he's probably seen things like that during the course of his career. He's seen it all, but we had to put up with the Russia hoax. He knew it was a hoax, and I knew it was a hoax, but what was done was very criminal. But it made it harder for us to deal as a country in terms of the business and all of the things that we'd like to have dealt with. But we'll have a good chance when this is over. So just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell Putin and his entire team, who I know in many cases, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss, but especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good, productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have.
Down, please, sir, down, please, thank you.
Okay, so Trump did, they did not answer any questions. They really just gave statements. And you guys can let me know your thoughts on that. they did not say that there was a ceasefire, right? Russian president calls Trump meeting long overdue, and they both put on a happy face, and he notes that there have been no summits between the two countries for a few years. Putin says that the meeting was long overdue, that he and Trump had a number of frank phone calls, and that the Trump special envoy, and he kept the dialogue going. So Putin greeted Trump as his neighbor, that they're only 4 kilometers apart. We're close neighbors, and that's a fact. Quote, for this reason, he told Trump, hello, neighbor, as they shook hands. So, but we did not actually see, we did not actually get a ceasefire announcement, did we? So, let me know your thoughts here in the comment section. Yeah, so we will see what will happen here. I will keep you up to date here. Maybe some progress made. It does sound like it was a good meeting, but it does not sound like, we got an actual ceasefire. It's honestly what I expected out of Putin. It's honestly what I expected out of Putin. I did not expect Putin to come and actually make a deal, but hopefully there is some inner workings there. Remember that President Donald Trump said 2 weeks ago he gave him 10 to 12 days before these secondary sanctions of 100% would go into effect for any countries that do business with Russia. That would be China, India, Turkey, and Russia themselves. So does this change things? We will see, and that would affect Americans as well. So I will keep you up to date here with everything going on here, and we will see. Putin says to end Ukraine war, the primary causes must be eliminated. He adds that in order to make a settlement lasting and long-term, we need to eliminate the primary causes of the conflict without detailing what he means. So, yeah. So obviously, Putin's still being Putin and not coming to a ceasefire. Yeah. So I'll keep you up to date. Make sure to subscribe down below. Share this video with others so they can get this information. Click the bell icon so you get notifications when we go live, and I will keep you up to date. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.